So the National Archives, as we are now, we were formed in 1986 under legislation, and then this building was given to us in 1988 by the state. Albeit that we had been collecting records as the old Public Record Office, we became the National Archives. In 1922, when the old Public Record Office was destroyed, we lost centuries of records. And in a way, that moment marked a new beginning for the state, but also for the National Archives, because we started a new journey, which was to collect the records of the modern Irish state. And there was an absolute commitment in the Free State government to ensure that that process of collecting the records of the state and telling that story would be enshrined almost in what we did.
I manage the digital imaging unit, which we create all copies of documents that were requested by the public. And we also do preservation copying, which is where we would copy an entire series of records for preservation purposes. We look at records that are of national interest and records that we know are going to be very popular with the public. So the classic example, obviously, are the 1901 and the 1911 census. A lot of work goes into digitisation, and you want to make sure that the records are what people want to view and that there will be long-term use of them. In the past, archives would have microfilmed records in order to create copies, what they would call surrogates. But now we digitise. The equipment that we have, they're all specially designed archive scanners and cameras. They're sympathetic, it's low light, low heat. There'll be very little damage to the document by making that copy. Microfilms that were made 100 years ago can still be used, can still be read. But digital images, obviously you can do them in colour and you can do them in high resolution. And when you get a digital copy rather than a printout, you can zoom in and you see the data much more clearly. The census was actually digitised from microfilm. The microfilm was done in the 1970s. However, we have digitised the soldiers' wills from the First World War, and there's over 9,000 of those records. And they're very small, fragile documents. And we knew that they would be very popular, obviously, when the centenary of the First World War was coming up. I project managed the digitisation of the soldiers' wills, and to see all of them up there and out there for the public to see these wonderful collections, which are sometimes very sad because most of these, they were rank and file privates in the army, so they had their pay and their army pay, and that's all they had. And 9 times out of 10 it's left to their mother or their sister or their father, because obviously most of them were young unmarried men. We had a gentleman from Belfast, and one of the wills that we used, we highlighted some wills when we launched them, and one of the wills we had was signed with an X because the person couldn't sign, and it turned out to be his grandfather. I met the gentleman, he came down and he saw the will, so it was great that for a family member that they were able to see their relative and to see his will. You're able to bring people to life, you're able to see a bit more of their story and a bit more of how they lived and where they lived. We are based here obviously in Bishop Street, and we still have our storage in the forecourt complex where the original Public Record Office was. The building was rebuilt after the destruction in the Civil War in 1922, but it was half the size of the original building. But there's about 90,000 standard archive boxes in the forecourts, and here in Bishop Street we would have about 200,000 archive boxes here. We also have records in commercial off-site storage. We have tens of millions of documents, and an archival record can be a single sheet this size. It can be a photograph from the 19th century that's this size, or it can be a massive volume from the 18th century, 19th century that's this big. It's stock control for records on a massive scale. We store documents in the most sympathetic way because obviously the aim is to preserve these documents as long as humanly possible. In an archive you want cool and dry, so the lights are on sensors, so it's dark in here unless there's somebody in here. We never turn on the heating. This isn't a purpose-built archive building, and it does have windows, so we've put UV filters on the windows and we've put blinds on all the windows. We do have an electronic monitoring system which monitors temperature and humidity at all times so that we can see if there are any issues in any areas. Security is very important here, and we have 24-hour security on site. And readers who come in, obviously they're not able to bring their bags or pens or anything like that. We do everything we can to protect the documents. Although this isn't a purpose-built archive, we do everything we can to meet international standards for archive buildings. to ensure the protection and the long-term preservation of the documents. In the 19th century, when national schools were established, they applied to the then Board of Education to set up a school in their area, and so there's records for every county, and we're currently digitising those. It's a huge collection and it's taking quite a bit of time, but we're really excited to get that done because obviously it's full of lots of local information about the schools in the areas, and for schools themselves, if they want to do school histories and commemorations for the opening of their school, they'll be able to use that information as well. The National Archives is the record keeper of government, of the state. All records that are created in an official capacity by civil and public servants, they come to the National Archives. It is wonderful to see records go up online and that people anywhere in the world at any time of the day can view one of our documents.